What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Fantasy Files podcast, where we talk about our favorite fantasy series and topics. We are your co-hosts, Spencer and Gabe, and today we are talking to the incredibly talented and prolific Chris McGrath, the guy who likely made the cover for your favorite fantasy book. We'll introduce him properly in just a moment, but first, if you enjoy this content, be sure to Donkey Kong smash those like and subscribe buttons down below and ring that little bell icon to get notified whenever we put up new content. Remember that for every time you hit those buttons is another 20 minutes I allow Gabe to call his loved ones from his cage in my basement. So do the right thing. You can also follow us on Twitter to see what we're currently reading and get fantasy and sci-fi book and video game recommendations, as well as requests that Gabe give you a call from my basement. Not really, I wouldn't let him do that. With all that out of the way, let's introduce our guest, Chris McGrath. So just in case there are some listeners who have been living under a rock for the past 20 years, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, where people can follow you?
Well, I mean, you can follow me on Instagram or Twitter. All the links are on my website. But yeah, I've been doing book covers, sci-fi fantasy book covers since 2000. I started. So 22 years going on. Actually, this August will be 22 years, wow, which is crazy to think about. So yeah, I mainly do sci-fi fantasy. In the beginning of my career, I was painting. And then, as the industry shifted over to, more digital stuff, I swore I would never do digital too, which is kind of funny.
Oh,
digital. It's just faster. I can't, oil painting, I'd be a very poor guy. I'm very slow painter. Even digitally painting, I'm pretty slow, actually. I don't know if that's because I'm super picky or, everything's never good enough.
Sure, yeah.
So I'm constantly reading and stuff. But yeah, so I've been doing science fiction, fantasy covers pretty much strictly for going on 22 years, which is just crazy. I think I'm still working and in this business. Yeah, so that's pretty much who I am. I don't really do anything else. I don't do movie stuff. I don't do anything like that. Occasionally I've done a romance cover.
Okay.
Find it out there. But
for sure. Well, I would kick myself later if I didn't take a minute to say all this, but I want to fanboy for just a second because the Dresden Files covers were, we were just talking about before we started recording. You were saying that a lot of people don't even look up the cover artist when they on their favorite books, and Dresden Files was the first series that made me say, who made this cover? Like, I have to know who this person is. And then shortly after, I've been in love with the Dresden Files for, God, what's it been? At least a decade. And
the first cover you saw?
The Proven Guilty was the first one.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah,
that was my second Dresden cover. Yeah.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, Deadbeat was the first. Actually, kind of. Yeah, my career got really busy after that cover. Before that, it took a while to build up the clientele. When I had started doing covers, I was working for some small publishers just to kind of build up my portfolio and make some money. Wasn't paying well. And I did do a couple of toy collectible boxes, like the artwork for that.
Okay.
I think it was Alice Cooper and Rob Zombie 12-inch figure.
Cool.
Yeah. So it was kind of like mixed stuff at the time. And actually, I did do video game work once in the process of trying to build my career as an illustrator, because the work wasn't steady yet. I had to kind of inch my way in, and I didn't realize, like the art directors already had clients that they've been working with for years. So to get in is not that easy. Just for them to take a chance on you, and even if they like your stuff, they have a loyalty to their previous clients. So it's like you have to slowly build your career in there and wait for like that opportunity to get a good series, and then that kind of gets your career going full time. So I really wasn't a full-time illustrator until I was almost full-time. I did Deadbeat, and then I did a cover after that for Rob Thurman at the time. Which
Oh,
was,
yeah.
yeah, Nightlife. And that took off. And I actually found my kind of style and look at the time with those covers. Like it just kind of showed up. I didn't really realize it. And then, somebody kept pointing out, oh, I know your stuff when I see it and all that.
Right.
Right. I think that was a turning point for me stylistically, because I was coming from oil painting and I was approaching the same way, everything mentally the same way. And I still kind of looked like some of my teachers at the time. I was still very heavily influenced by them. But I think with Deadbeat really defined like me as a illustrator and my style and my look at the time. And the book company loved it. So they went crazy and they just wanted everything to look like that. And my phone was ringing off the hook from like every other publisher. And I had an agent at the time, my agent, and that was that. He pretty much handled everything for me.
So did your agent get you in touch with ROC to start on the Dresden Files?
So actually, my first job with them was a sci-fi series. And I just had like a dark, gritty kind of style. So the art director thought I would be good for Dresden. And they gave me like the manuscript, but they also gave me a bunch of notes as to what they wanted for the cover. And they were like, yeah, this guy, he looks like Van Helsing and he's, a vampire hunter type guy. And I'm like, all right. So I didn't read the book. I knew nothing about it at the time, the series.
Okay.
So, or urban fantasy, really. And they were like, yeah, he wears a hat. He has a long coat. He looks really goth almost and stuff. And I'm like, all right. So I put together all this stuff. And then as I was reading the manuscript in the beginning, I was like, oh, he doesn't wear a hat. I always get asked about the hat. And at the time, I mentioned it to the publisher and they were like, it looks really cool. So we're just going to keep it on.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I guess I'll, and I guess that helps sell the book. It definitely makes it pop off the shelf more than just, a guy in a long jacket.
Right.
It makes it a little more mysterious. You don't see his face and, stuff like that. So, that was how I did one cover before and then they gave me a chance. The art director thought I'd be really good for that. And then that book came out like almost a year after. So it's usually about 7 to 9 months from the time I hand in a cover for it to come out. And once it came out, that was it. Like
off to the races.
Super, yeah. I was so busy right after that. And it just kept getting busier and busier. So, but I was doing okay at that point, but I was still doing other stuff. Like I was working on a video game project. It's something that probably nobody ever even played or remembers. It's PlayStation 2, Echo getting up graffiti game.
Oh, yeah.
Never heard of it. Sorry.
Trips, it's old. It's from like, I don't know, was that like 2006, 5?
That's so crazy. Yeah. I definitely played that game when I was younger for sure.
My friend, my former classmate, he was the art director for it. So
oh wow.
He's like, "Want to work on this with me?" And I was like, "All right." So that was my first exposure to doing video game stuff.
Yeah. And
it's not for me. The deadlines and the constant, the great thing about a book cover is you meet with your art director. You have you don't even meet with them anymore. They just give you some notes. You send them a couple of sketches and then they pick one and then you don't hear from them until the deadline.
Yeah.
So it's great. It's kind of spoiling. And then with the video game stuff, there's constant communication back and forth all hours of the night, especially I was working on the West Coast. So I'd get calls, for the evening at, 10 o'clock at night.
Oh, yeah.
We need changes tomorrow morning. We have to get it done.
No.
And we need it in the morning. And they really didn't need it in the morning, but so I'm up like all night. And I was like, you know what? If this is how it is to be a concept artist, I'm like, I don't think I could handle it.
Yeah.
Those guys, I'm impressed. It's a lot of pressure, a lot of pressure.
Yeah. Well, when these, these special edition books and stuff come out for these certain video games and it's all the concept art, it's like, there's like 20 different renditions of this one thing. And so I imagine they would ask you to, put out so much quantity.
Exactly. They keep burying it over and over and over again. And I was like kind of not knowing what I was doing really, because I don't have any friends who are concept artists either.
Right.
So we're just kind of, winging it at the time.
Yeah.
And but the good thing was, I guess a lot of people back then were, because it was the early years of video games. It wasn't like the blockbuster crazy productions that they have now. So it was a little more mom and pop shop sort of kind of
Yeah.
thing going on. I mean, it was getting popular and things were getting, taking off the budgets and stuff for these things. But at the time it was a little simpler and, this is just like pre 12 million sales, kind of thing. 1 million. Yeah. So
I couldn't imagine the amount of pressure they're on nowadays with these extremely high budget
insane.
games that
oh,
are
yeah, it's a lot of work. Yeah. So, I mean, doing book covers, it's a lot of work too, because, it's the thing about freelancing is, you don't know when the next job is. So you just take them all. At least I
Yeah.
do.
right.
Part of my problem. So I end up booking myself up like crazy. And the publishers do everything quarterly. So all the deadlines and the due dates are at the same time. So, and so you have like 5 different people, asking where their stuff is. And
right.
it's pretty stressful. Yeah.
That
So it's
sounds
not like
stressful.
one project and, you're just doing this thing. It's like you got a lot of stuff going on.
So will you work on, let's say you have 5 projects, will you just work on one and finish it then the next one, or will you do a little bit on this one, then a little bit on the next one and kind of
I've done that a couple of times in my career, but only because I had no choice.
Yeah.
So one day I'll work on something and then like while I'm waiting for an answer on something for
start
that,
the next one?
I'll start working on the other thing, but I really don't like doing that.
Yeah, that's kind of what I would.
The vibe of the book. It's like your mindset changes. It's just, so I like one at a time.
Yeah, that's kind of what I figured.
I'm super late, especially these past couple of years and everything, because it's just me. So
Yeah.
I want to do a good job. I don't want to, crank stuff out, but it definitely gets pretty stressful.
Yeah,
for sure. So going back to talking about Dresden Files a little bit, I'm really curious is, you said that's where your style kind of started to develop and, concrete itself. Was there any other drafts for the Dresden Files book? Like, is there another like alternate reality where the covers are totally different?
Not that I know of. I mean, there was, because the series was up to, I came in on Deadbeat, which is what, 6?
5 or 6. I think.
Before that, there were like these kind of mystery kind of still life covers, like old school. There's like a window with a curtain blowing.
Yeah. I was wondering if those were before you or if those were a more
those
recent
were before,
cover.
and then they hired me to do the other ones, to give the book consistency. And at that time, I think Dresden, it was a huge title for them, so it was worth it for them to go back and redo the covers and stuff like that. So
that's cool. I saw on there was something on tour. They had talked to you at some point, and you had mentioned that you had thought about doing bringing in some of the side characters onto the Dresden Files covers. Was that?
Yeah, I would love to, but so far they just want.
They just want Harry.
Yeah. They're in the street somewhere in Chicago.
Yeah.
It's definitely not narrative. It's a formula that works for them, I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
So until it doesn't work, then they probably won't change it.
Yeah.
So we just kind of vary up the background and stuff. So that's the fun thing was, with these other ones, like I just did for Podium, gives me a chance to experiment, and I don't have the hat on them, and
Oh yeah.
put them in another setting. And I did one for a collectible book for Grim Oak Press.
Oh, okay.
And they had like a limited run for Stormfront. They're trying to do the rest of the books, but I'm guilty of being insanely behind. I can't. Hopefully, I'll be able to get to that book sometime before the year is over. But yeah, so there's like a cover and about, I can't remember, 5 or 6 illustrations inside. And they're just, they don't have to be a cover. So what's great is I can kind of do whatever I want, really more like just action scenes or comic book stuff.
Okay.
Because with a cover, you're trying to make a graphic kind of shape that's going to pop out to just reach somebody walking by.
Yep.
Not necessarily about a scene so much.
Yeah.
That doesn't really work for a book cover, I think, quite often. So yeah, I generally for the covers, I stay away from the narrative kind of stuff. So it's fun when I get these projects. So I'm doing Heretics of Dune, which is one of my favorite series. So I have like I'm going a little overboard and crazy with it, but
yeah,
it's more of a passion project. So I can kind of just do more narrative stuff, which is fun.
Yeah.
Nice. Do you any of these books that you do covers for, did they end up becoming like, how often do you read the books that you do these illustrations for? Do they end up becoming favorite books of yours or anything?
Not, it's changed over the years. So in the beginning, well, actually, I was lucky with Brandon Sanderson. So I had a lot more time to read, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
I just don't anymore. So I think when Mistborn came out, the hardcover had John Foster cover on it. And I remember thinking it was really cool. So I was like, oh, this sounds like an interesting series too. So I bought it and I was reading it and I was like, oh man, I would have loved to have done this. And at the time I was working for Tor. I forgot what covers I was doing. I was working for one of the art directors there. I think I did some sci-fi detective series for them at the time. I forgot the name of it. I think it was called Cop with a K.
Okay.
And yeah, so I read that and I was like, oh man, this is such a good book. I would have loved to have gotten a chance to do it. And then just by chance, the art director was like, hey, Chris, we're doing the paperback edition and we want to, put a new cover on it and kind of do like a relaunch sort of. And it's Mistborn. And I was like, I'm reading it. So I was pretty excited to do it.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So that's how that happened when I got into it. And I can't believe that was like 2008.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I look at those old covers. I'm like, man, I wish I could go back and redo everything. It's just kind of, yeah. I've evolved over the years, I guess.
Right. We recently had MJ Kuhn on the show for Among Thieves. Do you remember anything specific about the creation of that cover? Because that's definitely another one of my favorites.
Oh, that was interesting because it was lockdown.
Yeah.
It was like the deep lockdown. Like everybody was like in their apartments. Yeah, I live in the city here.
Yeah.
This was like the beginning stages of that. Like it was like really weird. So I usually do, photo shoots and stuff. I have models compose for me. It's just the way I was trained as a painter. And working realistically, you need some kind of reference and stuff. You can't just
Yeah.
So I remember I was like kind of stuck with that. And then I experimented. I don't want to give anything away, but yeah, it's a little different than my normal thing. And yeah, it was the concept, I was playing around with like a landscape with a very small figure, which I usually don't do. I was playing around with like all sorts of stuff. And then at the last minute, like usual, I hate all my sketches. And then finally, like I get something that I'm psyched about. And that was the one, because they didn't want to show the face character too much. Yeah. And it's always kind of fun for me because usually I'm a character guy. I almost look at myself as like a portrait artist in some ways, sci-fi portrait artist.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was fun. It was, my sketches, I'm really bad. I do a very loose sketch. I used to do these very tight sketches for the art directors. And then I found it didn't leave, because every artist will tell you, they probably see their piece kind of through a fog. And as you're working on it, you think of ways to make it better.
Right.
You could add to it. So I tend to do a pretty loose sketch because quite often I'm just so disorganized. I keep adding things to my paintings. So very, very rarely do they look similar to my sketches. But I do have a habit of changing things as I go along and adding new ideas in. And probably adds to my length of time I work on stuff. But
yeah.
Nice. Well, when MJ was on the show, she went on for like a few minutes about how much she was absolutely in love with that cover design. She's like, I was so happy with the way it turned out. I
was so stressed. Like I was like, oh, I wonder how it's going to turn out. I handed in a different one. I had a slight different color. I thought they were going to go for. I was surprised she picked the blue one. I had like a gray cover.
Oh, okay.
I like that. I like that one.
Yeah.
So.
Gabe, do you want to grab a question?
Yep. Do you usually interact with the author themselves or more of the publisher? And is it different for self-published or how do these people reach out to you?
Yeah, it's definitely different. So the publishing houses, I understand why they do it. I don't know, maybe I shouldn't say this stuff, but they don't particularly like the artist, at least in the old days when I was starting out. They didn't want the artist and the author talking too much of each other.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it could create a lot of problems. Everybody has a different personality. Maybe I'm a difficult guy. Maybe the author's a difficult guy, and they're trying to avoid any kind of conflict between the talent. So I totally understand it. And there's an art director who has a job to do. So
Yeah.
I don't want to have to arguing with like two separate people.
Yeah.
So
Right.
the covers, most of it lies within the editorial department and the art director. They kind of decide what's going to happen with the cover. And the artists, they leave it up. Sometimes they're just like, do whatever you want. They give you a very vague idea. For example, like Dresden, just he's in the street looking mysterious again. Just do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Make him look cool, as long as it looks good. Something like that.
Yeah.
Occasionally they'll have a pretty specific idea of what they want, but that's and I honestly, later in my career, after doing I don't know how many covers, I kind of enjoy that a little bit. You begin to run out of ideas eventually.
Yeah.
And I've done, I don't know, at least 500 covers in 20 years. I can't even know. I mean, it's definitely got to be around there for sure.
Yeah.
I remember when I crossed the 300 mark. That was a while ago, a long time ago. So it's hard to keep things fresh and new and
for sure. Yeah.
So did I answer the question? I can't remember.
Kind of, but yeah. The next thing was about like self-published people. Like how do they kind of reach out, or if
so that was a weird thing because I didn't trust it at first because it's just like people would just with the book company, it was either with an agent or whatever. You're working with a legitimate company with
for sure
purchase orders and stuff like that, and you're going to get paid no matter what.
Yep.
So when the first ones came, this was years ago. It's probably been about 6 years since this whole thing started. 7 years maybe. The self-publishing Amazon thing.
Yeah.
They would come to me, and then they would be like, "Oh, what's your rate?" I have a book cover. I'm like, "Oh, it's kind of weird," but like, I'm like, are they really serious? So I would just give them my rate, and actually, I would give them kind of a little bit of a reduced rate because they're self-published.
Yeah. Yep.
Right.
And they're 9 times out of 10. Actually, in the beginning, they all ran away.
Yeah.
Again. And then the first time I named a price, and it was actually it was more like because it was a hardcover price I was throwing at him, and he was like, "Yeah, I could do that." And then I was kind of like, "Can he really do that?"
Yeah.
And then he did it. He gave me like half up front, and then he paid me for the book. It was no problem. And the book never came out. I never heard from the guy again. It was really weird.
Wow.
And I'm assuming something happened.
Dang.
Yeah.
And he vanished, but he paid me and everything. Really nice guy. I wonder what happened to him. But anyway, so then slowly but surely, I guess the self-publishers, they started making money.
Yeah.
It became very successful. At the beginning, it wasn't like that. They didn't have the money.
Right.
So that sort of kicked in. And then I've been doing covers for Phil Pointrell, which is really successful author, doing like just traditional high fantasy. And I don't usually get the chance to do high fantasy with the publisher. So I was really psyched to do that series. It gave me a chance to do like dragons and
for sure
and stuff like that, which is kind of fun. So working with them directly, they're pretty cool so far. I haven't had a bad experience. Everybody's been kind of just letting me do my thing.
How was it with Kel Cade? Did she kind of give you an idea of like who Reskin is? And
so that came through Podium.
Did it? Oh, weird.
It came. She was self-published, I think the story was, and then I guess she got the deal with Podium because the book was doing very well.
Oh, okay.
And they did the audio book, so they're the ones they hired me.
Okay.
And they gave me a brief description of it, and not much actually to go on, just a little bit.
Yeah.
And the book was there, and usually my schedule, I don't have time to read a whole book.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Go through the beginning just to get a little bit of the vibe of it, if I get a book at all. Actually, nowadays, quite often the book, because of Amazon and all that stuff. In the beginning of my career, I would get a manuscript, like big wad of paper or phone book, and I would be like, read through that and get the idea for the book. And
you're like 8 hours later. I don't know if I have time for this.
And then you would just do the cover. But now with Amazon, they need to get something up right away.
Yeah.
And they want to start promoting the book, and they got that thumbnail, and so quite often the book is not even finished. When I start a cover, they just the editor will give me some notes, what the world is like, what the characters are like, what they physical descriptions, some of the things that happen in the book, which is good for me because as any illustrator, we're really busy. When you're booked up, and it's hard to sit down and read a book.
Yeah.
So. But the self-publishing is, they just contact you directly, and you can look them up on Amazon, and you can see if they're, legit, and they have,
for sure. Yeah. If they'll be able to
know who you're dealing with. So.
actually do it. Yeah.
But the first time I really got impressed, there was a guy who's doing it's kind of like lit RPG stuff.
Oh yeah. That's my jam right there.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
So I didn't know at the time what that was, but I was like, all right. He was like, yeah, I have, I need these books done, and I need like one a month. And I'm like, man, I don't know if I can do that.
God.
But I didn't believe it at first. And then I looked him up, and I was like, oh, this guy. And he hired a pretty big audiobook guy. So I was like, this guy.
Can you tell me what the series is, or can you not say?
I'll probably not say right now.
Okay. That's fine. That's fine.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Do you ever use like various, like, I don't know, models or celebrities for inspiration? Because there's no way that Reskin isn't Henry Cavill, right?
Actually, he's been on. I've had him on a bunch of covers. He doesn't look like that. I guess with the hood on, maybe. Yeah, I could see that. Yeah. I look at something. Yeah, I didn't see that in there, but I could see that. I have a bunch of models that I use. It's been changing over the years. So, they're getting old now. It's been 20 years later. So it's the thing. I see some of the models, they're very young in the beginning. And you watch them old like you, all growing up together. So it's funny. But it's like, I guess the guy who does Harry, Dresden, John on the hardcovers. When I first met him, it was 2004. We were in our 20s back then.
Wow.
Kind of crazy, yeah. So now we're, well, I just became 50, so, but anyway.
Oh, wow.
It's kind of crazy.
I've got one more question. I don't even know if this is on the list. I'm just curious about your process. So do you, you're doing a cover. Do you like actually draw this cover and then render it like on, to the computer or something? Or, how do you get from your easel, for lack of a better word, to, like the,
it's the same process. I don't know how deep I want to get into this, because
that's fine. Just be as vague as you want.
And here's one thing that bothers me too. When I was young, it was like there was no internet. When I was in college, there was nothing. Like it was 1991. So there's no Photoshop, no digital era, no internet, nothing.
Yep.
Like the only time you could see an artist was like if he had an art book out. Or like an interview in a magazine or something, and there was a lot of mystery to it. And there's some charm to that, I think, that has disappeared. I feel like I do painting demos, and I have one on my Instagram, that I did for my class, because I teach also. At
cool.
SVA, my college, I went to. I just feel like there's a little mystery disappearing. It's almost become like you have to put on a show with it. And, I don't know, I feel like a trick monkey or something, like doing a painting for people. And and it's boring to watch, honestly. And I'm so slow. If you're waiting for me to get, like to paint a head, it's like 6 hours for me, at least 7 hours.
Yeah.
And you'll fall asleep. I see my students kind of conking out, Some people are really quick. They have a quick style, and it's fun to watch. But not me. I'm like, and it looks really bad up until like the last 10%. I pull it all together.
Yeah. Well, it's got to be like, I'm sure that the massive rise in YouTube in the past 20 years has made a huge difference on exactly that kind of thing, because people see all these like speed painting and all this stuff that's like sped up super fast, and they're used to getting like near instant gratification, right?
Yeah. And the other thing, I kind of feel like I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. This is all personal opinions, but like I feel like when you watch that stuff, yeah, there's something fascinating and you learn something about it. But I really feel like if you're going to be a serious painter, digitally as well, if you're just going to paint in Photoshop, I really feel like you need to do live painting, like with a real live model to be a serious painter and really understand what's going on. There's a lot of, so like there's a thing where, you know, if you're copying photos forever, your stuff will always look like a photo.
Yeah.
You won't ever have a living quality until you've worked from life enough. You know how to breathe that life back into a painting and make that person feel alive again. And that's the only way you can do it.
Yeah.
So the problem, you know, if you're trying to be a good painter of like figures and stuff in your pieces, I highly recommend, like, don't get too carried away with the videos. Go do some real paintings.
For sure.
Work from life, work from a live model. It's really the only way you're going to get better. You know, in the beginning, when I was trying to learn, you know, before you go to college, you come out of high school, I wanted to do comic books.
Yeah.
That was my thing. And then when I got into college, you know, my favorite artist was actually, what made me want to do book covers was Frank Frazetta. When I saw that, I was like maybe 12. And my uncle, he used to draw a lot. So he had a Frank Frazetta book.
Oh, cool.
Once I was over at his house and I was like, what the hell is this? Yeah, I pick it up. And I was like, oh my God, like this is, like, what is this? You know, and that totally set me on to doing book covers. So yeah, I did that. And then I was into comics. So back and forth. And, you know, I would just copy photos at home because that's, you know, all I could do. I didn't really have a big picture on like understanding of how you get better as a painter. I thought there was like just magic. You just do it and sometimes get better and better.
Good enough and then you're great.
Yeah. And yeah, when I got to college, I went to School of Visual Arts in Manhattan. So I used to commute in every day. I'm from the Bronx originally, so come in. And yeah, the first year was a joke. You know, it's like kind of like you're babysitting, sort of adjusting you. And then the second year it gets serious, where you start taking your classes. And I remember seeing this one person in my class. I was a drawing class, and I remember like actually doing the life drawing, I started to notice I was able to make stuff up better out of my head. I always struggled with that. If you're an artist and you're listening, I always struggled making stuff up out of my head by copying photos. Like you just couldn't, like there was progress, but it wasn't heavy, fast progress. But once I started working from a live model, it changed everything. Like all of a sudden, 3 months later, it's like I got better than I ever did in my entire life. Just working from life. So again, I always stress that in this digital era, you should be working from life just to get better at digital painting and bring all that stuff back into it. But there was this one student in class. Actually, he wasn't a student, thank God, because I would have been really depressed. He was a student, but he was sitting in on the class. And he did this life drawing. I was like, it was, at the time anyway, when I was looking at it, it's so far at everybody else.
Wow.
And I was like, who the hell is this guy? Like I feel like crap, like shit. I'm like, man, I got a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
And, you know, he was in the class. He was a very quiet guy. And one day I was talking to a friend. I was showing like a Frazetta book, and he was like, "Oh, that's a cool book." And then I ended up talking to him. And it turns out it was Dorian Vallejo, Boris Vallejo's son. He's really, Boris is like legendary fantasy painter. Case for anyone.
Wow.
Okay.
So Dorian was doing. He had graduated, but he was, you know, so he was 4 years older than me. He was sitting in class, still life drawing and painting, trying to get it for free as much as possible.
That's
and
cool.
because he understood, you know,
that's what
how
you
he got
need.
better.
Yeah,
and his
definitely.
paintings show it. And he was doing sci-fi fantasy book covers already when he was in college. You know, because his dad was an illustrator, so he kind of
For sure. Yeah. Yep.
You know, I was in like La La Land as to how all this works.
Yeah.
You know, I was like thinking, oh, I'll just get a job. I'll walk in somewhere, and it's just, you know,
right.
So Dorian, became a pretty big influence for me. Just seeing a student like that with that level of work kind of drove my entire group, you know, little class clique that we had into improving quite a bit. Like so there was like a standard set, you know, that was attainable because you saw somebody do it.
Yes.
You know, so then I was like, okay. There was another guy in the class that was friends with him too, who was actually my classmate. So he's my age. he also had an amazing drawing. And I was like, what the hell? Where? I was like, where are you learning to do this stuff? Like in school,
Right.
we're in this drawing class, it's okay. And he said, oh, there's this guy, Steve Assell, you have to study with. And it turns out Steve Assell was like probably one of the top realist painters at the time. He still is.
Oh, wow.
And so I took his class for 3 years straight, and that's pretty much where I learned everything. You know,
Wow.
and then like seeing,
Dang.
like, so I learned all my life painting. I learned how to draw a figure, paint a figure, understanding edges and structure. Everything came from there. And he was doing book covers on the side. He was mainly a fine artist. He was doing these cool Western covers, and you know, but learning how to put an illustration together, I learned it quite a bit by one of my other instructors, and then seeing how like Dorian, my friend, was doing it. You know, he really understood. You know, he did the photo shoot, the transfer drawings, and and he was doing everything in oil at the time. So I mean, like I said, there was no digital.
Yeah.
And then when I graduated in '95. Photoshop 4 came out, and it had layers, and that changed everything.
Yeah, I bet.
Maybe it was like maybe a little later, like '96. It was maybe like a year after, and I was still working on my portfolio and putting that together because a lot of students, they're not finished when they 4 years is not enough time to like learn how to paint and draw.
Yeah.
You really need like 7, I would say.
Okay.
So you're it gets you ready, but you still have a lot of work to do after. And you really become a professional when you start working. That's when your work improves and starts to take shape and look like a professional. Like a lot of times in the beginning, you're just good enough to get a job, like minor, and the art director just has a minor job that they just pass it off to you. And that's how my career started. So, but yeah, I was lucky enough to study with Steve, and I probably wouldn't even be doing book covers, honestly, if I didn't learn that stuff in those classes.
Wow.
I would be, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know, teaching guitar still or something like that. I have no idea. So yeah, that was pretty cool. But then as the digital stuff came in, I was very resistant. I didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
And I just kept working on my oil paintings. And I kept doing what Dorian had done. I was sitting in on the classes up until like 1998. I was going to SVA just for free, like sitting into the building. There was like no security back then. You could just like walk in. There was nothing like that. So I would just go there and work on that. And then finally my book cover portfolio was finished. So we're looping back around to the beginning of my career again that I left out. I remember my friend was like, oh, you got to learn Photoshop. And I'm like, no, I don't want to learn it. And then he's like, well, we could do it together then. Let's like do a side thing like this, and you do your oil painting portfolio. And I was like, I don't care about it. Like, and then I saw Craig Mullins stuff, who's like the godfather of digital painting, really. When I saw Craig Mullins, he's a concept artist, again, for people who don't know so much.
Yeah.
Okay.
He was the first guy I saw do a digital painting with Photoshop. That was an actual painting. That looked really good.
Wow.
It looked like a real illustration. So I was like, oh my God, all right, maybe I should look into it a little bit. Because if this guy could do that, then maybe I should, check this out. So I looked into Photoshop, went over to my friend's house. I was like, all right, whatever, it's kind of cool. I started learning it. I actually kind of surpassed my friend who ended up going into graphic design.
Yeah.
A former classmate, but he was doing illustration too, but he kind of just shifted gears. And now he's an art director somewhere. So I did 2 portfolios. I had my oil painting portfolio and I had my digital portfolio. And I remember going to the art directors, and this is something you don't want to do when you're an art student and you're going to an art director, or show up with different stuff. They don't like that. It confuses them. And I remember going to Irene Gallo at Tor at the time when we were like really young, and showing her both portfolios, and she's like, don't you want to keep painting? I think I might want to do more digital stuff. And she's like, all right, it looks good, and that was that, and then she called me years later for a job. But yeah, she wanted to hire me for a painting in the beginning, not I think anyway. And then so I showed my portfolio to an art director at Penguin at the time, Ace Books, and she looked at both of them and she's like, oh, I like your stuff a lot. Thanks. Boom. And then, you're out. So that's how it pretty much goes in the beginning. Then you're waiting. And 6 months later, when I thought everything was over and I was never going to get a job. Actually, my friend who was working at Blue Sky at the time, Blue Sky did Ice Age.
Oh,
Okay.
He was like, Chris, he's like, there's an opening. You come work with me, being a color key artist. And I was kind of like, I don't know if I want to do that. My dream is like book covers. I don't want to give up yet.
Yeah.
But I was thinking about it. I was really playing with the idea
yeah.
and I didn't do it. And then literally I'm like, okay, I'm going to call my friend Dice and just be like, all right, I'll try it out. And then the phone rings and it was the art director at Penguin.
Wow.
I was like, okay, cool. So I'll do that. And then she's like, yeah, I want you to work with me. But she's like, I want to oil paint. She's like, I don't want any digital stuff. I didn't like it at the time. It was kind of like, they weren't sure either. They're in the same sort of
Yeah.
mental boat as me. And so, yeah, I did oil painting. And then slowly but surely, everything just became digital because, it's easier for the art director.
Right.
Before you had to photograph the painting and, get all that stuff done. There's dust and dirt all over it.
Yeah.
And,
Are there some artists nowadays that will do like their oil painting, but then kind of put it through the computer and liven it up through Photoshop and stuff? Is that
yeah, I'm sure there are.
yeah.
Definitely. Like you can. Actually, I know a couple, but I don't want to say.
Sure. Yeah.
But there's a great thing. I kind of miss the oil painting. There is an advantage to it. So I quite often mentally battle when I'm doing like a painting of a head or something. I'm like, I'm putting almost the amount of time in as I do for an oil painting, but I don't own anything in the end of it.
Yeah.
It really, coming from the era I did, it bothers me a lot.
Yeah.
So I kind of like it, like the guys who stuck to their guns, like Dan DeSantos, the piece you have behind you. It's great. He's still doing oil painting, and then you have a secondary market for collectors to sell, your paintings to,
Yeah.
which is great. I don't have that option being a digital artist.
Yeah.
So
let's talk a little bit about what have been like your favorite projects to work on over the years. Have there been any book covers that you look back on and I remember making that and it was a fantastic process? Anything that you love to look back on?
Yeah, I mean, I guess Dresden for one, right?
Yeah.
Sure.
Being that was like a defining moment for me as an artist, like getting my style. I really enjoyed working on that cover a lot, that Deadbeat cover. So I'm super lucky to be on Dresden and
For
also
sure. Yeah.
Brandon too. Like I said, because I had read that book, I was super psyched to be able to work on that cover, and everybody seemed pretty happy with it at the time, which was nice.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, every job brings something different, so it's kind of a hard question to answer.
Sure.
I know I have projects I would love to work on.
Yeah, we can talk about that. Is there any authors or any like specific like franchises or anything that you would love to paint?
Yeah, well, definitely Dune, which I'm at least working on.
Oh yeah.
I love Dune. It's like, but my favorite sci-fi book, it's always a toss-up. I've read all 6 of the Dune books, the Frank Herbert ones. I know most people don't make it past the first couple, but
Yeah.
I love that whole world and everything. I don't think there's anything really like it still to this day.
Yeah.
And my favorite sci-fi book ever might be Hyperion by Dan Simmons.
Oh, cool.
I would love a chance to work on a collectible book of that or something. So hopefully that will happen.
Okay.
I really love all 4 of those books actually, but
What if you were to make the cover, and this kind of bleeds over into another question I have, but if you were to remake the cover for Hyperion, what would you be looking to make it into?
I think I might stick with the Shrike on the cover.
Okay.
Just because it's such a prominent part of the book. I mean, it's kind of the symbol of it in a way. I don't know. I would have to play around. Like I said, sketches are always kind of foggy.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
See a bunch of them, and then when that idea hits you, something might pop out. But yeah, offhand, I would say I'd probably just stick with the Shrike on the cover. I don't know if you guys read it or not.
I haven't read it, but I've listened to multiple podcasts about it and reviews and stuff. And it's definitely on the list.
Yeah, it's beautifully written too. It's just such a great book. So yeah, I read like all 4 of those. I would love to do them. Also, favorite fantasy series stuff is also like Elric, I'd love to do an Elric book.
Oh yeah.
Or even like a Conan or something classic.
Yeah.
Those are projects I'd love to work on. But for sci-fi, yeah, definitely Hyperion and Dune are my two favorite picks.
Cool.
Okay.
Oh, and Venice Underground from Jeff Vandermeer. It's a kind of a short
I haven't read that.
sci-fi book. And that is really beautiful book.
Okay.
Great story. Yeah, highly recommend that. It's kind of like artsy sci-fi, I would say,
Okay.
but great, really great book.
Nice. I put on here the original question I had in my notes was like, if you could try your hand at any classic sci-fi and fantasy covers for a re-release, what would they be? But then I put, I'd love to see your take on Wheel of Time covers or King Killer Chronicles.
Yeah, I've actually never read them. My friend, that's like his favorite series ever.
Yeah.
I would love to, maybe I'll get to the audiobooks or something. I think I have one.
Yeah.
They're long though.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
like 40 hours.
Yeah, like 40 hours. Yeah. So, and it's hard to, when I'm concentrating on working, I might miss something in there, but
Yeah.
For sure.
yeah, I would love to do them. Actually, something that's like a long time ago, maybe before Brandon got the deal to finish it,
Uh-huh.
the art director one of the art directors at Tor was trying to pitch me. He was like asking me, would you be interested in redoing the covers? We're playing around with the idea.
Oh, wow.
Like, changing the covers, but they ended up not doing that at the time. They ended up sticking with the covers that they have. Yeah.
Yeah. If you were to, here's the question. If you were to redo the Wheel of Time covers, would you like stick with the same scene that's on them, but do them in your style? Or would you come up with something totally new?
I would come up with probably something totally.
Yeah. Yeah, those are, I'm only 4 books into the Wheel of Time, but they are quickly becoming some of my favorite book covers.
I hear that they're awesome.
All right, let's see what else we got here. Do you see a question that you want to hit, Gabe?
Yeah, your website mentions you've done work for Microsoft and Atari. I'm assuming those were for video game stuff, or?
Yeah, so the Atari game was the Mark Echo Getting Up.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
Gotcha.
Nice.
They were the publisher for that. And then Microsoft was the Halo stuff.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Nice.
Halo covers I worked on. So it was that kind of joint thing. It was like Microsoft and which company was putting that out? I don't remember. My agent was like, that was through my agent, so he was kind of handling.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it was Hyperion Books or something, one of those ones.
Okay.
Which is owned by Disney, maybe. I can't remember. Sorry. But yeah, so I was dealing with Microsoft quite a bit with them on that. So.
Yeah. Do you play many video games at all?
Yes, I do still.
Oh,
Nice.
I go through phases. Sometimes I don't.
That's me, man. I have the same issue.
Yeah.
I'll go like 3 months without playing, and then yeah.
I go even sometimes a year, and then also like, all right, my brain needs to be drained out.
Exactly. Yeah, I got to do some mind-numbing gaming for a little while.
Exactly. Just relieve that stress.
Yeah.
And it's great because I switched over to a PC.
There you go.
So did we.
Like, oh, man, I had no idea.
Master race.
Forget about Xbox. And
Yeah. Yep. That's the way to go, man.
Graphics card. I'm like, man, it's awesome.
What kind of graphics card do you have? Just really quick.
Actually, I'm in the process of building a new PC.
Oh, cool.
Oh, nice.
I just got a 3090 Ti.
Oh my
wow.
gosh, dude. Yeah.
Price drop on
Jealous.
those, if you noticed.
Yeah, they did. And apparently they're supposed to keep going a little bit lower and lower too. So if I had the money, that's what I would do for sure.
Yeah. I'm probably going to upgrade, the 40. I was going to wait for the 4090s, but I don't think it's available right away. I think people are just going to.
Plus, they'll be super expensive too for a while.
I mean, it's for work for me. So, because I'm, doing some pretty intensive stuff.
Yep,
Right.
definitely.
I'm trying to learn Cinema 4D, like 3D stuff. And
Yeah.
it's good. It's very useful. So, yeah, I realize when you're doing 3D, you can't get a cheap card. It's
For sure, you need the processing power. Yeah.
2080 is not enough.
Right.
That's what I'm using right now.
Which is wild to think about. Is it a 2080 Ti?
No, it's the regular 2080. So
Okay, gotcha.
8 gigs is not enough to do.
Yeah, for sure.
Somebody
You
out
need
there
the
is planning on playing with 3D. 8 gigs is you're gonna have a hard time.
3090. Does it have 32 or a
24. So,
24? Okay, still that's crazy.
Yeah, so it's great.
What are some of your favorite games to play?
Over the years, I don't know, what did I say? Oh, the Mass Effect, the original trilogy.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
I really love that game, the whole series. I guess was Uncharted 2 was probably one of my favorite games.
So you're more
Okay.
like of a kind of a story-based game player. Do you play
Yeah.
any like multiplayer, like,
Yeah,
typical
I just
Call of
played God
Duty?
of War,
Oh, okay.
which I cranked it up to Ultra, which was awesome.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
the detail in that game is insane. That
Oh,
was
wow.
actually probably will go down as one of my favorite games, I think.
Cool.
Oh,
Really
nice.
That's
adorable.
awesome.
So
I was one.
RPG, The Witcher, all that
Yep.
stuff.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Oh, yeah. Skyrim probably too.
Yep, all that
Yeah.
stuff.
Nice.
Awesome.
I was curious if you were a fan of some of the games recently that just kind of have almost that I don't really know how to describe it other than like a quirky art style, like the BioShocks and the Dishonoreds. Have you played any of those?
Yeah, I love that. Those more stylized looking games. Yeah,
Yeah,
Dishonored is great. Yeah, I love the artwork for that.
yeah, really
yeah,
fantastic.
those artists are fantastic that work on that game, actually.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's another thing too. It's strange, because I look a lot at concept art,
Mhm.
which is totally different than illustration.
Yeah.
It's like this
Okay.
always weird conflict because I want to be influenced by, keep my look updated and stuff. So, but it's very, very different. It's much more landscape oriented stuff, which
Yeah.
for book covers doesn't come around that much, at least not for me. Occasionally, but yeah. So yeah, I enjoy all the concept art for the games too. It's a very
Right.
big influence for me.
Nice. Well, so before we started this interview, I had reached out to Twitter to see if anybody had questions for you, and
Yeah, sure.
by far the most popular questions were about Harry's hat. So obviously we just saw him without a hat in the law, but can we talk about kind of how this feud with Jim started about the hat?
Yeah, actually, from what I remember, I mean, it was a long time ago. It was like, 2004, almost 20 years ago, which is just crazy to think about.
Yeah.
That. Actually, I did the cover. Oh, no, wait, it came out in 2005. I did the cover in 2004. But yeah, Jim was cool with it from what I remember at the time. Like the publisher just wanted to put it on there. And
Yeah.
I think he was like, yeah, if that's what works, because like I said, it's marketing. You're trying to capture the eye of somebody who's just like literally walking by a bookshelf. And yeah, that hat pops out right away. It makes them like I said, more mysterious.
Yeah, adds a layer to it, definitely.
Yeah,
Right.
so yeah, there wasn't so much a feud or anything, and it's just, the publisher wanted it on there, and Jim and me, we really didn't have anything to do with it. So
Yeah.
Did you ever in one of the books, Harry Dresden makes a comment to somebody about like something about his hat? He's like, "What, do you think I wear hats all the time?" or something like that.
Right.
I don't know. Thought that was
I put that on the new novella. I put the hat hanging on the hook.
Yeah, I was
Oh,
just looking
yeah,
at it
that's
and
right.
I saw that. Yeah,
Yeah. That's
super
funny.
cool.
So I guess one of the last questions that I have is, so you mentioned that it's kind of hard to keep finding inspiration. Like you said, you've done like 500 covers at this point. It's hard to, keep finding new things. What do you do to kind of keep that creative tank filled? Is it kind of like playing different video games or movies and stuff like that, just to get
pretty much like movies, video games, concept art, fine art stuff, photography, whatever. It just gets it's difficult because you're always working in the same exact shape, that rectangle, like always.
Yeah.
Right.
The
Yeah.
text usually at the top and the bottom, so you're kind of left with this space. So yeah, you just try to figure out how you're going to fill that space in a different way. I think I've kind of got more for me in the direction of, I don't know, making more elaborate costumes and stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the way to go. Like for now, that wasn't my focus in the beginning. It was just more about the whole picture making thing.
Right.
So, but yeah, I've been trying to make my environments a little more lavish these past several years.
Like Reign of Madness, the second book in King's Dark Tidings. I love that cover where he's perched up in the Colosseum area and he's got the whole getup on. That's one of my favorites.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if I was making him look cool or not. I was like,
he looks awesome. He looks
yeah,
terrifying.
you nailed that one for sure. And then do you still like just for yourself do like an oil painting, not one that you're trying to sell, just for your own kind of practice, or is it now work?
Occasionally, I did. Well, not oil painting. I do, I guess, digital stuff.
Yeah, just for like fun, just to keep.
Yeah, I did. I did like a weird piece that nobody looked at. It's on my. It's like a kind of a girl, very stylized looking. She looks like an alien. She's holding a flower, and she's got a kimono on, and like so that.
See, that sounds cool. Yeah.
I'm probably going to redo that piece, I think, or at least change the face. I think I'm going to repaint that. But yeah, I don't have the time I would like to.
For sure. Yeah.
To do my own thing. I really want to now.
Yeah.
I did actually one kind of Android girl. It was an experiment for me. I was kind of combining 3D with it and all this stuff. But yeah, I don't really have the time, especially now. Like I have some
for sure. Yeah.
projects. So I have this Dune project looming over me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I have my
over your shoulder.
This stuff, and then school's starting up in September, so I'm like trying to get as much done as possible this summer.
And then so you teach as well?
Yeah, I teach illustration at School of Visual Arts, like 3 classes, 4 classes.
Cool, that's awesome.
Nice.
So it's fun. I like it. It gets me out of my apartment, which
for
is
sure.
Great.
Yeah.
And I get to socialize, which I don't get to do, and it's less stressful than illustration.
Yeah.
So I like sit down in front of my class and I just do like a painting demo of a head, and I can paint whatever I want.
Yeah.
I'm just
there's not a lot of pressure, right?
Yeah. There's nobody calling me, nobody yelling at me. And I'm like, all right, this is great. And I get paid for it. And I'm like, wow, this
for real. You're like, yeah, this works great.
Students learn stuff, and
exactly. You're kind of giving back too, which is always a good thing.
Yeah. No, I mean it's actually nice when you see a student who really appreciates like what they come to you and they're like, oh, I learned so much. And because I don't think anybody's learning anything. I think they're falling asleep half the time all of a sudden.
Right.
Yeah. And they're like, oh man, and they're like so bored with my class. But then at the end of the semester they come around and I was like, oh great, I'm glad you liked it actually.
For sure. Yeah. That's awesome.
That's cool.
And it's interesting to work on other people's problems.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And to help them kind of get past the blocks that they may have and stuff.
It actually helped me improve pretty dramatically. I started teaching in 2014 at SVA. They had called me and they're like, oh, we have a class if you want to take it. I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll try it out. But yeah, I definitely, because the students are up to date on everything.
Yeah.
And it really pushes you to keep up because they, the second you look like an idiot, they don't respect you.
Yeah, definitely.
So, it pushed me pretty hard to get better. And my style started changing as a result. And so it was definitely a good choice on my part. I might just retire that way. Just stop doing book covers. I'll just keep teaching and
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Way to chill out.
Cool.
I've been in the game long enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've definitely made quite the footprint. Do you while you're teaching, do you ever find yourself kind of is that a way for you to get inspired as well? I know there's kind of that old maxim of like you can only get so far and then you start teaching and then you start learning again kind of through that whole process. Is that true for you at all?
Yeah, I think so. I think that is true. Yeah. It's like, I wouldn't want to be teaching something else. I'm glad I have a class full of pretty serious students,
Yeah.
learn art. I don't know if I would have the patience otherwise, but even still, there's always like the kids that are just whatever.
Oh yeah.
Class, then what are you doing here?
Yeah.
But yeah, concept art is definitely the most popular thing right now amongst young people, which I get. So my advice to young artists, actually, if I could go back to even 10 years, 12 years of my life, I would, or if I was like 35, I would have pivoted, I think, and became a ZBrush character sculptor, character designer, doing like 3D ZBrush
Yeah.
stuff.
Oh, okay.
I think that for me, that's the way I would go now. I wouldn't do book covers, honestly.
For sure.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
And is that more like because of what you want, or that's like where the market is kind
Hey,
of?
I
Like
love
that's-
it. I love designing characters. And
Cool.
Yeah.
I like sculpting. I've always done it. Even so, for my reference for like a lot of book cover stuff, in the old days, I would sculpt it with clay.
Yeah.
I build a dragon. It would take like,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
yeah, it wouldn't look great, but it was enough for me to
Base.
writing down. And,
Yeah.
So, but then once, I saw ZBrush many years ago, and it's just too complicated. I didn't know how. I was looking at it, and what the hell is this? Like
Yeah.
my brain doesn't work that way. Then my friend, who's a ZBrush artist, he came over and kind of pushed me along a little bit. So I've been doing ZBrush for 2016. I started using it.
Oh, wow.
6 years. I'm way behind because I'm too busy with my other stuff, so I have no illusions that I'm going to become a ZBrush artist at this
Yeah.
stage of my life. It's a lot of work, but like I said, if I was younger, my advice to young students, if you're into concept art, everybody, I think at this point, 2D and 3D are so merged. I mean, you
Yeah.
can't go on ArtStation and find it's 90% of them are using Blender,
Right.
and painting, and it's just the way things have gone, and it's
Yeah.
such a great tool. So I highly, highly, highly recommend if you're going in down that road to learn Blender or something, or ZBrush or both. It's just the future for that stuff. More VR stuff is coming out too.
I was literally just gonna ask you about that. Have you ever done like I have a VR headset and I've done Tilt Brush, which is 3D basically imaging, and you can draw and you can move around. And I was like, man, I bet you people could make some incredible.
Oh, there are artists already doing it.
Yeah, I believe it.
Work. So yeah, I met a couple of concept artists that were also working on so I'm working on that collectible Dune series.
Yeah.
I'm doing book 5, and then there's an artist for each one, so there's 6 of us, and we met online just to talk for a bit,
Yeah.
because we were thinking of doing like some kind of NFT thing, but
Oh yeah.
that didn't happen. We don't own the rights to it, so
Yeah. Yeah.
But anyway, so a couple of those artists, they were like, oh, you have to get a VR headset. Like they're doing a lot of the stuff,
Yeah.
or at least the beginning process, and then they move it into Blender after. And they're like,
Yeah.
it's amazing because you can, if you're designing a room, you can stand in the room,
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
move the
the
furniture around and design.
the depth
yeah.
is crazy.
I
Yeah.
came very close to getting one at the time. I'm just still trying to learn Cinema 4D and Octane
Yeah.
Render and ZBrush, and I'm like, my plate's full. And
Definitely.
I probably will get the Valve headset, so I think I'm waiting.
No, that's I just
Yeah.
have the standalone, the $200 one, because I couldn't
Yeah.
afford but by far the Valve headset is the best one in my
Yeah, so I'm
opinion.
waiting for Adobe to come out with their new, because I think the Medium was the one everybody was using,
Yeah.
and,
Okay.
they didn't have it for Valve yet, but they have a
Yeah.
whole new, what is it called, Adobe 3D or something is coming out. So I'll probably get back into it then. Maybe I'll
Cool.
check it out. Maybe, I don't know, could change stuff, but I still have a lot to learn, even on the other.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But there
One thing
are
at a
artists,
time.
there are artists, a lot of them using that.
Yeah, I'll have to check them out, man. I've never even thought of looking up.
Oh, check out well, I shouldn't say it because I don't know if they want anybody knowing how they're.
I'll just go, I'll Google it. I'll find some kind of art or whatever. But I just thought it was, I'm not very artistic, but I sure did have a blast going to try and, paint this cool 3D image. It was really fun.
Yeah. 3D is hard. It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
I have a whole new appreciation for movies, and you think it's like 1, 2, 3, and there's like color. It's very, very complicated.
Yeah.
And it's hard coming from the 2D world, adjusting, because it's more of like an engineering.
Yeah.
Thing. When you're getting into rendering and things like that, it's a little more based on science and not so much just like painting.
Yeah, definitely.
ZBrush.
Interesting.
That sculpting software, for me, I'm attracted to it because I feel like I'm sculpting and making art, because it uses my drawing skills that I learned and my
Yeah.
painting skills. Whereas something like a traditional package like Cinema 4D is a little more technical, and it's
For
a little
sure.
more clicking with a mouse and doing stuff. It's fun, it's great, but it's a very different mentality,
Yeah.
and it doesn't care that you learn painting and drawing.
For sure. Yeah. It doesn't like come to play as much.
Yeah,
That makes sense.
it's like, I'm like, oh, I can learn this stuff quick. I know how to paint and draw. Well, I was slapped in the face.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Doesn't work that way. So
Well, Any last questions, Gabe? I got one more before we wrap up. But if
Go
you
for
have
it.
any-
Yeah, I've asked the ones that I was curious about.
All right. Well, as we wrap up, one final question. Obviously, we don't want to spoil any books that haven't been announced yet, but can you talk about anything that you're working on or anything that you're excited for in the future?
Yeah, I think most of the stuff I'm working on right now has been announced in some way. Like, so yeah, I'm working on Kilcade's next book, the Redskin book 5.
Yeah.
I just got the title. I forgot what it was, but I'm sure it's up on Amazon as black and white image with no cover.
Dragons and Demons.
That's it. Yes, Dragons and Demons. So I'm working on that. I'm working on hopefully Dresden collectible book again for Full Moon.
Nice.
Coming up, and then I've pretty full schedule. Phil Quintrell's next book. I forgot my big publisher ones. They're big long list, but
Yeah.
I think I just saw your cover art for The Lost Metal, right? And hasn't that just gone up?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's coming up. Yeah,
nice.
so
Yeah.
that was.
Yeah, I think, by the way, the characters that are always on those books are so spot on to like how I see them in my head. The Wax and Wayne and all of them, they're perfect.
Awesome. Good to know I made the world happen for you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Chris, thank you so much for joining us.
Yes.
Sincerely, like,
It's fun.
obviously I'm a huge fan, been a huge fan for like 10 years now, and your art is fantastic. So thank you so much for joining us today. It's really an honor.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like I said, I don't do many interviews, so you guys are.
Yeah,
Like I said, we feel honored for sure. For sure.
Everybody's gonna start asking me now. So
Yeah. Luckily, we're not super big yet, so you know what I mean.
Yeah.
You're only gonna a couple hundred people are gonna see this.
All right, guys. Well, we are going to wrap it up there. Thank you so much for joining us for our interview with Chris McGrath. Be sure to follow him on Twitter at cmcgrath72 and his website, which I'll link down below. I highly recommend checking out his portfolio in prints for sale at chrismcgrath.art, where you can order prints of several of his color illustrations, like the new Dresden novella, The Law, and one that I will surely be ordering next paycheck, the art from the first book in the King's Dark Tidings series, Free the Darkness. As always, do all the YouTube things, click all the buttons, and help Gabe to get some phone time with his grandma. You can also follow us on Twitter at FilesFantasy for all the usual reasons, and we'll see you in the next video.
thanks, guys.
Yeah.
All right.